From the outside, the Inmans were the picture of small-town Christian perfection in southern Ohio. Every Sunday, their devout presence at church masked a darkness that none of their fellow worshippers could have imagined lurking behind closed doors. The story begins in 1983, when 18-year-old Bill Inman first spotted 16-year-old Sandra during a church service. Their courtship, blessed by both families, quickly led to marriage in their tight-knit evangelical community of Logan, Ohio. Bill found work as a builder while dedicating his free time to playing music at the Evangelical Church of the Tabernacle of Faith near Nelson Villa. Sandra embraced her role as a traditional housewife, supporting her husband's growing religious ambitions. In 1984, they welcomed their son, William Jr., known as Will, to avoid confusion with his father. As Will grew up, history seemed to repeat itself when at 17, he met 15-year-old Summer Cook during a church service in 2001. Their romance mirrored his parents' story almost eerily. 3 years of dating, followed by marriage once Summer reached adulthood in 2004. The young couple moved into the Inman family home in Logan, creating what appeared to be a perfect multi-generational household. That same year, Bill Inman, then 39, took a controversial step that raised quiet concerns in the community. He declared himself a spiritual leader and transformed his garage into an unofficial church. What began as a small gathering of neighbors soon grew into a congregation, with people seeking spiritual guidance and leaving behind generous donations. Local whispers about the self-proclaimed pastor's legitimacy went unaddressed. Will and Summer welcomed their first child, Alex, in 2005, but their joy was tempered by mounting financial pressures. Bill's makeshift church wasn't providing sustainable income, pushing the family to seek opportunities in Florida in 2006. Both Bill and Will found construction work building hotels, while Sandra and Summer maintained the household and cared for young Alex. Yet, after just 2 years, an unexplained urgency drove them back to Ohio. Unable to reclaim their previous home in Logan, they settled in the rural outskirts of Vinton, an isolated area where dense forests and winding back roads seemed to swallow secrets whole. The young couple expanded their family, welcoming daughter Kay in 2008 and another girl, Alana, in 2010. Nearly every weekend, Will and Summer would leave their children with Bill and Sandra, who showed an almost unsettling eagerness to have the grandchildren to themselves. The Inmans' reputation in their religious community remained intact, but questions simmered beneath the surface. The sudden closure of Bill's Florida church, their hasty return to Ohio, and the family's increasing isolation in Vinton raised concerns that most people were too polite or too afraid to voice. No one could have predicted how these seemingly minor details would soon weave together into a tapestry of tragedy that would shock even the most hardened investigators. Behind their meticulously maintained image of Christian family values, the Inmans harbored secrets that were about to shatter the peace of their rural Ohio community forever. Beyond the polished veneer of their charitable works, the Inman family's carefully constructed world was beginning to crack in the spring of 2010. Bill Inman, newly ordained as the official pastor of the Church of the Tabernacle of Faith, launched an ambitious charitable venture with his wife, the Ranch of Mercy. Their stated mission was noble: to provide shelter for society's most vulnerable, the homeless, the widowed, the orphaned. But like many things in the Inman household, the reality would prove far more complex. Bill's fundraising scheme was grandiose: a lottery with a $200,000 grand prize, or a new house, plus 99 other valuable prizes. At 10 per ticket, he worked tirelessly to sell his vision door to door throughout the community. His persuasive talents proved remarkable. By summer's end, he had amassed an astounding $1 million through 100,000 ticket sales. The drawing was set for September 2010, but fate had other plans for the Inman family. Behind closed doors, a different story was unfolding. In June 2010, Summer Inman made a decision that would set in motion a chain of tragic events. After 6 years of marriage, she confided to Will her desire for divorce. Her private diary, later discovered by investigators, revealed the depths of her desperation. "I'm suffocating under the weight of everyone's expectations," she wrote. "The facade of being the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law, it's crushing me. I deserve to feel love again, to rediscover who I am beyond these walls. My children are my world, but I can't let them grow up watching their mother live as nothing more than an obedient shadow." Her words betrayed a deep-seated fear of the family's reaction, particularly regarding custody of the children. "Will might snap, try to take the kids and run. His parents will fight me every step of the way, but I can't stay silent anymore. Every day feels like drowning." Summer's fears of resistance from the Inmans weren't unfounded. When she finally gathered the courage to leave, taking Alex, Kay, and Alana to her parents' home, the tension was palpable. Though she arranged visitation rights for Will and his parents, the situation remained fragile. By August, she had begun a new relationship with Adam Peters and taken a job as a bank cleaner in downtown Logan, steps toward independence that would later prove fateful. The contrast was stark. While Bill Inman orchestrated his $1 million lottery scheme under the guise of Christian charity, his daughter-in-law was scrubbing floors at minimum wage, desperately trying to build a new life. September approached, bringing with it not just the promised lottery drawing, but storm clouds that would soon burst over the small Ohio community. As September and October passed, Summer's new life began taking shape, but tensions with the Inmans grew increasingly volatile. Her job at the Logan Bank, though modest, represented something that terrified Bill and Sandra, their daughter-in-law's growing independence. Her relationship with Adam Peters only fueled their mounting anxiety about losing control. While Summer cleaned the bank's floors each evening, Bill's lottery scheme was unraveling. The September drawing came and went without any winners being announced. When questioned, Bill offered vague explanations about administrative delays and pending verification processes. Local whispers about the legitimacy of the Ranch of Mercy lottery began to circulate, but the Inmans' sterling reputation in the church community kept serious suspicions at bay. Summer's diary entries during this period revealed escalating concerns. The seemingly ordinary custody arrangements had taken on a darker tone. During visitations, Bill and Sandra would interrogate the children about their mother's new life, who visited her house, where she went, what she did. Alex, at just 5 years old, became their unwitting informant. Will's behavior grew increasingly erratic. What started as pleading phone calls transformed into aggressive confrontations. Summer confided in coworkers about strange cars following her to and from work. She began varying her routes home, but in a town as small as Logan, there were only so many ways to avoid being found. One evening in late October, Summer added a final, chilling entry to her diary. "They're watching me constantly. Yesterday, I saw Bill's car parked outside the bank again. Sandra keeps telling the kids that soon they'll all be together again, the way God intended. I'm scared, but I can't show it. If something happens to me, please know that they—" The entry ended there, abruptly, words that would later haunt investigators. As autumn deepened into winter, the $1 million from Bill's lottery seemed to vanish as mysteriously as it had appeared. The promised shelter for orphans and widows remained nothing more than architectural drawings in Bill's garage-turned-church. Meanwhile, Summer's attempts to secure a formal custody arrangement met with endless delays and complications, many stemming from the Inmans' considerable influence in the local community. What no one realized was that beneath the surface of this seemingly typical family dispute, a plan was taking shape, one that would soon transform this small Ohio town from a quiet community into the epicenter of a nightmare that even the most hardened detectives would struggle to comprehend. Late autumn in Logan brought bitter winds and early darkness, conditions that would prove fateful for Summer Inman. Her evening shifts at the bank ended at 11 p.m., leaving her to walk to her car alone in the poorly lit downtown area. On those nights, the shadows seemed to stretch longer, darker, more threatening. By November, the questions about Bill's lottery had grown too loud to ignore. Several winners had come forward, demanding their prizes, only to be met with elaborate excuses. The local newspaper began investigating, but before they could publish their findings, attention would shift dramatically to a story far more sinister. Summer's relationship with Adam Peters had deepened, offering her a glimpse of the normal life she craved. She began making plans to move to a neighboring town with her children, farther from the Inman's sphere of influence. But whenever she mentioned these plans during custody exchanges, Bill would fix her with a strange, empty stare that made her blood run cold. The bank's security cameras would later show that in the weeks leading up to winter, a dark van frequently appeared in the parking lot during Summer's shifts. Sometimes it would idle for hours, its windows tinted too darkly to see inside. When Summer reported these incidents to local police, they found no concrete evidence of stalking. After all, who would suspect a respected pastor and his family? Will's behavior became increasingly concerning. He began showing up at Summer's workplace unannounced, claiming he needed to discuss the children. During one such encounter, a coworker overheard him say, "You'll never take them away from us. We won't let you destroy this family." Summer filed for a restraining order, but the paperwork moved slowly through the system. Sandra, meanwhile, had taken to calling Summer's parents multiple times daily, alternating between tearful pleas about reuniting the family and thinly veiled threats about God's judgment. She told anyone who would listen that Summer was an unfit mother, destroying their Christian household with her sinful behavior. The $1 million from the lottery remained unaccounted for, but Bill had begun making mysterious trips to hardware stores, purchasing items that seemed odd for a pastor. Industrial cleaning supplies, heavy-duty tarps, specialized tools. When questioned by his congregants about the shelter project, he would smile and say, "God's plan is in motion." As December approached, Summer confided in a close friend that she felt trapped in an invisible cage. "They're always there," she wrote in a text message, "watching, waiting. Sometimes I think they're not going to let me leave Logan alive." That friend would later replay these words countless times, wondering if she should have done more. The stage was set for a tragedy that would expose the dark underbelly of this seemingly perfect Christian family. No one in Logan could have imagined that their small town was about to become the center of a case that would shock the nation and force them to question everything they thought they knew about faith, family, and the capacity for evil in the most unexpected places. The night of December 17, 2010, brought an early winter storm to Logan. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and an icy wind whipped through the empty streets. Summer was finishing her usual cleaning shift at the bank, unaware that this ordinary Friday night would be her last. Security footage later recovered from the bank showed Summer leaving at 11:07 p.m., pulling her coat tight against the cold as she walked toward her car. At 11:09 p.m., the grainy video captured 3 figures emerging from the shadows of the building. Their movements were quick, practiced, almost choreographed. Within seconds, they had Summer in their grip. A witness, a local teenager walking home from a late movie, would later describe hearing a woman's scream cut short, followed by the screech of tires. By the time police arrived, all that remained in the bank parking lot was Summer's purse, its contents scattered across the frozen pavement, and her car keys dropped mid-flight. The initial investigation moved slowly. Despite Summers' documented fears about the Inmans, local law enforcement's first inquiries were cursory. Bill and Sandra presented themselves as concerned grandparents, wondering aloud if Summer had simply run away with Adam Peters. Will played the part of the heartbroken husband, suggesting that perhaps the stress of their separation had led Summer to do something rash. But Adam Peters knew different. He had been waiting for Summer at her apartment, preparing a surprise dinner to celebrate her recent promotion at the bank. When she didn't arrive and wouldn't answer her phone, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Summer would never abandon her children, he told police. Never. The children, staying with Summer's parents that weekend, would later provide crucial details that adults had missed. 4-year-old Kay mentioned seeing Grandpa's special van in town that night, a vehicle Bill claimed to have sold months earlier. 7-year-old Alex recalled his grandmother Sandra washing lots of dark clothes in the middle of the night when he stayed over the previous weekend. As news of Summer's disappearance spread through Logan, the facade of the Inman family began to crack. Former members of Bill's congregation came forward with stories about his controlling behavior. Questions about the missing lottery money resurfaced. A hardware store clerk remembered Bill purchasing unusual items: zip ties, duct tape, industrial cleaning supplies. Then came the security footage from a gas station 20 miles outside of town. At 11:47 p.m. on the night of Summer's disappearance, cameras captured a dark van matching the description of Bill's special van. The driver's face was obscured, but a distinctive cross hung from the rearview mirror, the same one Sandra had proudly shown off at church functions. The investigation was about to reveal how a family's obsession with control, hidden behind a veneer of religious devotion, could lead to unthinkable violence. The truth would force Logan's tight-knit community to confront the darkness that had been hiding in plain sight, wrapped in the comforting cloak of faith and family values. The investigation shifted dramatically when Detective Sarah Martinez took over the case. Unlike her predecessors, she wasn't swayed by Bill Inman's religious standing or his family's reputation. She saw the patterns that others had missed: the calculated manipulation, the financial deception, the escalating control. Cell phone records revealed a disturbing timeline. On the night of Summer's disappearance, calls bounced between Sandra and Will's phones, triangulating around the bank's location. More tellingly, all 3 phones went dark between 10:45 p.m. and midnight, the exact window of Summer's abduction. 5 days after Summer vanished, Adam Peters received an anonymous text. She got what she deserved. Jezebels who destroy families must face God's judgment. The message was traced to a burner phone purchased with cash at a truck stop, where security cameras had caught a glimpse of Sandra Inman's distinctive red coat. The Inmans maintained their innocence, organizing prayer vigils for Summer's safe return. Bill gave tearful interviews to local news stations, pleading for his daughter-in-law to come home to her children. But behind the scenes, investigators discovered Sandra had been making inquiries about gaining permanent custody of the grandchildren, citing Summer's abandonment as grounds. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A former member of Bill's church approached Detective Martinez with security footage from his hunting cabin in the Vinton County woods. The footage, dated the night of December 17th, showed the Inman's van traveling down a remote logging road at 12:23 a.m. 3 hours later, the same van returned, now riding noticeably higher on its suspension. When confronted with this evidence, Sandra Inman cracked. In a rambling confession that chilled even veteran investigators, she revealed how their perfect family had begun unraveling the moment Summer sought independence. "We couldn't let her take our babies," Sandra sobbed. "Bill said God would understand. He said sometimes sacrifice is necessary to protect what's holy." The confession led police to an abandoned septic tank on church property. There, wrapped in the tarps Bill had purchased weeks earlier, they found Summers' body. The medical examiner would later determine she had been alive for hours after her abduction, likely conscious while her in-laws decided her fate. The evidence painted a horrifying picture of premeditation. The lottery scheme had been designed to raise money for their escape after the murder. Bill had already purchased property in Mexico under an alias, using funds from his fraudulent charity. The special van had been modified specifically for the abduction, its seats removed and floor lined with plastic. But perhaps most disturbing were the pages from Sandra's prayer journal, found hidden in the church organ. "Lord," she had written the day before the murder, "guide our hands as we remove this serpent from our garden. Let our grandchildren be raised in righteousness, not corrupted by their mother's sins." The case rocked the foundations of Logan's religious community. Many who had dismissed Summers' fears now grappled with their own complicity in maintaining the Inman's respectable facade. The $1 million from the lottery was never recovered, though investigators suspected it had been funneled through various church accounts and withdrawn in small amounts over months.